Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective. And today will be no different. Today, we're going to talk about the benefits of working out fasted. And what that means is working out without any food on your stomach in a fasted state. Okay. And so, probably before we get started, let's answer the question: can you work out in a fasted state? Is that healthy? And the answer is unequivocally yes. And I'll talk about some of the benefits. And I'll also talk about some cases and scenarios where you need to be a little bit cautious about doing it. But yes, unequivocally, you can work out in a fasted state. As a matter of fact, this is how I have been working out for the last 2 to 3 years. Okay. And I made this shift and change based upon articles and studies that have been done on people who were working out in a fed state versus a non-fed state or a fasted state. And when they did the studies, and they did this in the Journal of Physiology, they did a study, and the study had two groups. The first group had a group of people who simply got food before they worked out. Okay, they ate the same kind of food throughout the whole day and throughout the whole trial. Okay, they did the same kind of exercises. In the second group, they did not get any food prior to working out. Okay, so they worked out in a fasted state. They ate the same kind of foods. They did the same kind of exercises at the same intensity. Okay, and the results were markedly different. Okay, and so that's what kind of pushed me in the direction to say, well, why have I been sort of thinking that I need to eat something? Okay, because we have all of these sort of philosophies that we've sort of adopted without actually doing the research on, like the concept of breakfast. Is breakfast the best meal of the day? Well, there's a lot of research out there that says the contrary. Or the whole concept of pre-workout is such a big thing now. I get this question all the time. What do you use for your pre-workout? And when I tell people I don't even actually eat anything, much less drink any of those toxic pre-workouts, then people are like baffled. So I thought this will be a really good topic for us to jump into today for that reason. Now, the other thing I want to kind of talk about is this: eating versus not eating before a workout. It's important that we know that, our physiology shifts when we do eat. Okay, and it shifts in especially a way when it comes to how our blood flows. Okay, so when we eat, all the blood shifts to our core, okay, specifically to our digestive organs. Okay, when we're working out, our bodies are trying to send that blood out to the peripheral, okay, to our arms, our legs, to get the movement going. Okay, and so that's one of the reasons why it just made simple common sense to me to sort of eat, to kind of work out in a fasted state, was because now, instead of while I'm working out, my body simultaneously working on the food, trying to digest it, shifting blood in that area, and then me also trying to work out muscles and shift blood into those areas, why not work into the flow of how my physiology works? So that's one of the first things that sort of made common sense to me. The other thing I think is really important is that fasted workouts take advantage of our physiology. And what I mean by that is fasted workouts take advantage of how our bodies burn fuel. Okay. And what I mean by that is that if you work out in a fasted state, the absolute best time to do it is in the morning. And here's why: because, you've been fasting overnight. While you were asleep, you weren't eating food. Your body was, healing, repairing, digesting, removing waste, which is why when we wake up, we have bowel movements and we have to urinate. Okay, so, and hopefully at least 2 to 3 hours before you went to sleep, you weren't eating, because we all know it's not good to eat right before you go to bed. So let's say you hypothetically ate 4 hours before you went to bed, and then you slept 8 hours, that's 12 hours, okay? And then you wake up at 6 a.m., and then you go to the gym at, let's say, 9 a.m., okay? Now, if you kind of look at where we're at in the picture, you go to the gym at 9 a.m., Now you've literally been fasting for about 15 hours by the time you got to the gym. Okay? So that's what it means to work out in a fasted state, because even the food you ate before you went to bed, at night while you are sleeping, your body is digesting, processing that food, and then the energy that was, or the fuel that was pulled out of that food, a lot of that energy has now been stored. Okay? Now, and let's get back to the original point of what I mean by how the fasted workout actually works into your body's benefit, or works in agreement with your body's physiology and biochemistry. Well, it's working in agreement with your body's biochemistry and how it burns fuel, because typically the body has, a few fuels, right? It has glucose, which is sugar. Okay. So you know that when people have high blood sugar or high blood glucose, then they eventually end up pre-diabetic and eventually diabetic. Okay. And so it's important to know that when it's balanced, that is the primary fuel that we use. So there's nothing wrong with glucose. The issue is always the quality. But the number one and primary fuel that the body uses is glucose, okay? So the number one food source of energy is carbohydrates, okay? That's where most of our glucose comes from, okay? So number one fuel, glucose. Number two fuel, fat, okay? Fat is the secondary fuel, okay? And I'm gonna go a little bit deeper with this in just a second. But it's important to know fat is the secondary fuel, okay? So if you go to the gym and you've just eaten a meal, what you're gonna be burning the whole time is sugar, okay? But what you really want to burn is, when you go to the gym, everybody wants to burn fat, okay? Now, how do you get your body to shift its metabolism to burn fat instead of sugar? Well, one of the ways that you could do that is by working out fasted. And the reason why that is because instead of burning all this fuel that's coming from the food you just ate before you worked out, you've been fasting for 15 hours, given the scenario that I gave you earlier. And now the only thing that your body is going to burn is what is called stored fuel. And the primary fuel, the first fuel that is going to burn, is sugar, glucose. Okay? Now, in its stored form, it's called glycogen. Okay, and that stored form is stored in the muscle tissues. Okay, so when you start to work out in a fasted state, your body is going to burn through that stored glycogen first. Okay, and because you're in a fasted state, it's going to burn through it relatively quickly compared to if you were eating a meal, and now not only has the fuel in your muscles, that stored fuel to burn, now it has the energy that you're creating as you're digesting food too, okay? So the first thing in a fasted state is gonna burn is the stored fuel, the glycogen or glucose that is in your muscle. Once it burns through that, it says, okay, well, we don't have, we have to save a certain amount for normal function, okay? So your heart beating, you breathing, like blood pumping, all of these billions of reactions that are happening in the body, they require fuel. Okay, so it's not going to burn through all of your glycogen, because that glycogen needs to be used, or stored fuel also needs to be used for the body's, essential functions. So it says, all right, I'm going to switch the metabolism, AKA I'm going to change my fuel up, and I'm going to start to burn fat instead of the glycogen, because we need that. And I don't want you to go into a hypoglycemic state, which means that your blood sugar gets too low, you start to get dizzy, you start to feel lethargic, etc. Okay? So that's the important part. We can use a fasted workout to shift our metabolism towards burning more fat. Okay? Now, the next fuel after fat will be ketones. Okay? Ketones are essentially once you start to metabolize and break down fats, you get ketones. Okay, so ketones are essentially like one of the byproducts of burning fat. Okay, but those ketones can be used for energy as well too. And then the last resort type of fuel that the body has is our own protein, our own muscle. And that is the type of fuel that the body never wants to burn. Okay. The body never wants to get to the point that it's actually burning protein. Okay. It doesn't want to waste muscle. It doesn't want to break down muscle. So that's a fuel, but it's really not a fuel. Okay. Now it happens when people go into these starvation periods, or, people are in a stressed, or, in a period of time where they have no access to food, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. But that is the last resort. All right. So I gave you the 4 different types of fuels. And what I'm telling you is that when you're using a fasted workout, the benefit of it is that, when you're in a fasted state, you're going to burn through that stored glycogen in the muscle first, and then it's going to shift to the fat, which means that you're going to burn more fat in a fasted workout. Okay. That's hugely important. Now, this is a benefit both with resistance training with weights or machines, and even cardio too. So that's the upside to this. Okay. You not only get the benefit from cardio, but you get the benefit when you do resistance training as well too. And I think what's also important to sort of look at the body as if it is like a hybrid car. Okay. With hybrid cars, they have both electric component to it and also a gas component. So what'll happen is when you initially start the car, it may be electric. Okay. And as you're going a certain speed, it's completely electric. And then when you switch over to like going high speeds, it may go to gas. Or on a long trip, you can use part of the electric. Okay. And then it'll eventually once the electric power starts to deplete, it'll switch over to gas. Okay. Think of our bodies in that way. Okay. And the trick is, how do I get the body to switch to electric where it's burning the fat? That's the idea. All right. Because if you can get the body to switch to burning fat, then you can burn more fat and also simultaneously start to build muscle as well too. And so that's sort of my philosophy or my approach to my workouts is that I want to burn fat. I want to build muscle. Okay. And the primary goal is to build muscle, but you always want to be burning fat. Okay. All right. So that's one of people's major goals. So I want to help you get there. All right. Now, as I mentioned before, there is some concerns with working out in the fasted state, especially for those who have blood sugar issues like diabetics. Okay. So if you have blood sugar issues or concerns, then you might need to be a little bit cautious when doing fasted workouts. You could be cautious in the way where you speak to your physician about this and then ask if that could work for you. But if you try this, what I highly recommend, if you're trying this for the first time, don't do a vigorous workout. Do a very low-key workout. See how your body responds to it, because the last thing you want to do is hurt or injure yourself. Okay, so hugely important. If you have concerns about this, please speak to your physician, because everybody's condition is different. And also certain medications, certain medications you take that could lower your blood sugar rapidly. That could be a concern too. Okay, so just putting that out there because I want everybody to be safe. All right. Now let's get into some of these benefits of working out in a fasted state. And this one, I talk about this all the time. One of the primary issues we have in our society today as it pertains to our overall health is the fact that we're becoming insulin resistant. Okay. Essentially, our insulin isn't working anymore. And for a lot of people, it's not that the pancreas isn't producing insulin. The real issue is that your insulin isn't working, okay, which means insulin resistance. Now, one of the benefits of working out fasted is that it actually increases insulin sensitivity, which means that insulin becomes more efficient at working. And as insulin becomes more efficient at working, it becomes more efficient as taking the glucose out of the blood and storing it for you. Okay, now that's huge. And it's huge for these few reasons. It's huge, A, because now the blood sugar is lower and now you don't have these blood sugar spikes. Okay, blood sugar spikes are what throw our energy off, and it also what eventually leads to insulin resistance and diabetes. The other important note about this is that As the insulin becomes more efficient, you need less insulin. Okay, so the pancreas produces less insulin. Why is that important? Because insulin is a fat storage hormone. It tells the body to store fat. Okay, so the more insulin you're producing, you're telling your body gain weight. You're telling your body walk towards obesity. Okay, and one of the benefits of working out fasted is that it makes your insulin more sensitive, more efficient. Okay, so you need less insulin, so that's really huge. The other benefit is that it helps you have fewer cravings. And I know that is a huge thing for a lot of people, especially when they're on a weight loss journey or trying to just eat healthier, is that the cravings are coming all the time. A lot of times, the reason why you're having those cravings is because your insulin isn't doing a very good job because of the insulin resistance. Well, now that your insulin is far more sensitive, guess what? You're gonna have fewer cravings as well too, and that's definitely gonna help you along the journey. And it's also gonna decrease your risk for, becoming diabetic as well too. All right, so increasing insulin sensitivity is one benefit, and when I say one, that is a huge benefit. Okay, because most of the diseases that people are dying from, most of the diseases that people are getting prescription medications for, most of them start with insulin resistance, okay? All right, hugely important. You don't have to be on insulin to be insulin resistant. And here's another scary thing. Your blood sugars can be normal and you have insulin resistance, issues with your insulin. Okay, so there'll be a period of time where you'll see somebody who has insulin issues, but it won't show up when they go in for a checkup. Okay, their blood sugars will be normal. Okay, and so they'll think to themselves, well, I don't have diabetes, but that isn't necessarily true. The body's compensating and adapting, and that's what's really masking the real issue. Okay, so number one, increases insulin sensitivity. Okay, number two, it increases growth hormone. Now, you probably heard in the exercise arena, even sports arena, human growth hormone. Okay, you probably have heard of this because it became very popular in the early 2000s, late 90s, because a lot of the baseball players got caught up in this home run race, and you started to see these aging baseball players start to get huge, start to get ripped. And one of the sort of, performing steroids that they were using involved growth hormone. Okay. Now, it's important to know that our bodies are nature's pharmacy. Okay? A lot of the things that are created synthetically, our bodies already make. Okay? And so the same things that Jose Canseco and Barry Bonds got accused of taking these hormone growth drugs, or HGH. One of the reasons why they were using it is it makes muscle grow. Okay, it makes muscle grow, and it makes you burn fat. You probably have heard of people going to these, diet clinics, weight loss clinics to get HGH shots as well too. All right, but again, our bodies can normally make this. All we got to do is figure out how we shift our biochemistry in favor of our bodies producing more growth hormone. Well, guess what? Working out fasted does that. And here's some other benefits of, human growth hormone. It not only increases muscle, increases our exercise capacity, your ability to exercise. You can do more exercise, but it also increases bone density. Okay, it increases muscle mass, you burn more fat, and it also increases recovery and healing time as well too, which is another reason a lot of the athletes were using the synthetic version of this to recover from injuries. We were seeing players who were getting injured, and the type of injuries that they were sustaining would be injuries that would put them out for the season, and they would be back in 3 to 4 months. Okay, so it's hugely important to understand that, again, we have nature's pharmacy inside of our bodies, and we produce this. It comes from the pituitary gland. All right, and we can shift our bodies, shift our habits, shift our lifestyles by doing something like this to actually cause the body to produce more of it. So that's a huge thing, okay? Huge, all right? The other thing, and I talked about it a little bit, and this is the big one that most people do fasted workouts for, is the fat loss. And let me tell you how that works. In our bodies, we have what's called intramyocellular triglyceride content. That is fat inside of the muscle, okay? Fat inside of the muscle. Now, here's why this is important. When we work out fasted, it's been shown in studies, that study that I quoted earlier, okay, that was in the Journal of Physiology, where they separated the two groups, and they had one group that both groups ate the same, did the same exercises, okay, at the same intensity, okay? The only difference was you had one group that worked out fed, meaning they ate before they worked out, and then you had another group, separate group, that worked out in a fasted state. They did not get food, okay? And in the group, one of the big things that came out of the study was that it actually increased the utilization by 3 times of burning of that intracellular triglycerides, the fat inside of the muscle. Now that's huge, because now you see the muscle start to get striated. Now you see those cuts because now you don't have fat in the muscle. Okay? So when people talk tone, which I'm not sure if that's actually a real definition, but what you're really doing when you're toning up is you're burning that intramyocellular triglycerides. You're burning the fat inside of the muscle, okay? And I think that is huge. If you can burn the fat inside of the muscle, the other benefit of that is this. When the insulin takes the glucose to the muscle, you're gonna have a much easier time to get the sugar from the blood into the cell of the muscle, okay? Because one of the issues you have when you're creating insulin resistance is that there's so much fat in the muscle that when the insulin brings it there, it's like putting gum inside of a lock, and you're trying to put the key inside of the lock and turn it, but there's gum inside of there, okay? You start to burn this fat, intramyocellular fat, more and more and more. Now you're getting the fat out there. Now the key just goes right in, turns, bam, you're done. You got the sugar inside of the muscle. And now that you got the sugar inside of the muscle, it's out of the blood. And now that it's out of the blood is thinner, better for your heart, better for your blood pressure. Okay, so you can see how these 3 benefits alone can not only shift your fitness, but it can shift your entire health as well too, okay? Again, as I was saying earlier, if you have any concerns with your health, please speak with your physician before trying this. And if you try this, do not go out and do a CrossFit workout on the first time of going to the gym and working out fasted. You know, my friends, when I work out with them, they're like amazed that I can walk in the gym, you know, and sometimes we don't work out until 12 o'clock at noon. So imagine that my last meal is at 7, okay? And then I'm coming back, you know, 16 hours, 17 hours later sometimes without having any food in my body, and I'm doing a full workout, full steam, okay? But that's because over time, I gradually got my body adjusted to it. So that's hugely important as well. The last thing I want to tell you about this that is really important, and this is the take-home message after all of that, is very important what you have as a post-workout meal afterwards, okay? What you eat after the workout, because I'm very prepared right after my workout. The first thing and most important is you want to have healthy carbs and healthy proteins, okay? Because you got to replace those glycogen stores that you burnt out, okay? And so you want to make sure you get some healthy carbs and healthy proteins. Healthy carbs looks like a smoothie, okay? For me, it's a green smoothie. And you want to replace that stored glycogen that you burned out with healthy carbs, like I was mentioning before, you know, fruits, green smoothie. But you also need a little bit of protein within 2 hours after the workout, okay? And the reason why that is so important is because if your body goes through 12, 15 hours of not eating, and then you go and do a workout, it's gonna put a stress on your body. Your body's gonna say, oh, I haven't eaten. Now they're working me. And then you go another 2 or 3 hours without eating or not eating the right things. Now it's gonna put your body in a stress state. When your body's in a stress state, it's gonna create cortisol. Cortisol tells the body to store fat. You don't want the body to do that. So you wanna make sure your post-workout meal has some healthy carbs in it to replace those glycogen stores. And you also wanna get some good protein sources in there as well, because now you got to rebuild the muscle that you've torn down through workout, because that's what a workout is. It is a tearing down a muscle. When you're lifting and squatting and etc., you're building muscle by tearing it down. Okay, so you want to rebuild it with healthy protein. All right, so I hope this has been helpful, useful, and enlightening to you. Comment below if you did fasted workouts in the past, or you're thinking to try them. And until the next time, peace and blessings, Godspeed. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because that's what keeps me going in terms of making sure I continue to make great content like this for you. Thanks for watching this video, but be sure to check the next video out that's right here. But everything I talk about is how do we take a holistic and natural approach to healing other than a man-made approach? And also, how do we prevent dis-ease in the body as well too? Because, you know, they say